Fun fact, when it's at 118 degrees Celsius, you should be able to blow a bubble with this mixture using a fork. Hello everyone and happy Easter. Thank you for coming or for coming back. Today we are going to make not one but two cute little Easter themed cakes. The first one is a carrot cake with some cute little piped carrots all around the sides, and the second is a bird's nest cake that is real cute all the way down to the cute little eggs that will sit in our bird's nest. Now, if you are planning on making this, then make sure you check out the description where I have listed all the ingredients and measurements that you will need. So starting with the carrot cake, we are going to mix our batter. Now, carrot cake is a really easy one to mix. All you have to do is combine all of your dry ingredients into a large bowl. Make sure to give it a nice whisk together so that everything is evenly distributed. And then in a second smaller bowl, you are going to add all of your wet ingredients and mix those together as well. Now you're going to pour all of your wet ingredients into your dry ingredients bowl, mix them once again until nicely combined, and then pour it into our pan. Now here I am using a 6-inch cake pan with tall sides and a circle of parchment on the bottom to make it easier to get out once it's cooked. Now this is just going to go into a 350 degree oven for about 40 minutes or until it is done. Now for our nest cake, I'm just going with a simple vanilla cake, but you can use any flavor that you like for this, of course. So we are going to start by whisking together in a small bowl our flour, baking powder, and salt, and then setting that aside. And then in a large bowl, we are going to beat together our butter and our sugar until it is nice and light and fluffy. Once that is finished, you're going to add your eggs and beat again until they are nicely combined. Once that is all combined, you're going to alternate back and forth between adding your flour mixture and your milk and vanilla, starting and ending with the flour and beating each time until it is completely combined. Now we are going to put it into our tins. So I was really excited about making little egg-shaped cakes by baking it in the eggshell. So I hollowed out some eggs, I filled them up with batter, baked them, and it didn't work. But I do know what the problem was, so I'm going to share it with you so that you can do this successfully. So the problem that I ran into was with the egg membrane. If you've ever noticed, behind the eggshell, there's this nice little thin film that sits in the egg, and that is what caused my problem with baking the cake in the egg. So it is possible to cook cake in the egg, and I know because 1 out of 4 of my cakes did work. So what you want to do to make sure that this works for you, if you try it, is that after you hollow out your egg, you want to carefully go in there and use your fingers or a tool or something to peel the membrane out of the way, because otherwise what will happen is it will sort of hold your cake batter up away from the shell in a little hammock sort of fashion, and you'll end up with a funny little hole or divot somewhere in your egg cake. So if you do decide to bake your cake in an egg, then go ahead and pipe it about 2/3 of the way full. I set this in a little bowl with some beans in it to keep it from falling over, and that will bake in the oven. I am going to show you a way to do this without baking the egg in the shell in case you're not into that idea. And so if you want to do the other way, then just go ahead and fill 3 to 4 cupcake tins with batter and bake them. Now for the nest part of this cake, I just used a small bowl that I greased and floured. Just any sort of heat-proof bowl will work just fine. Fill it with batter, and that is all also going to go into a 350 degree oven until done. Now while both of these cakes are cooking and cooling, we can work on our buttercream. I am using an Italian meringue buttercream for both of these cakes, and this is going to be enough to fill and ice both of the cakes. So if you're just doing one or the other, then make a half batch. I just did the same one, so I wouldn't have to make more than one icing. So we are going to start by putting our larger quantity of sugar plus water in a pot and put it on a stove on medium heat to heat up while we work on our eggs. So in a large bowl, you're going to add all your egg whites plus a pinch of salt, and you're going to beat that on high speed until it becomes frothy. Once it is a nice, light, frothy, bubbly texture, consistency. Once it is nice and light and bubbly and frothy, you're going to slowly add your smaller quantity of sugar and keep on beating until that is all added in. Now, while this is happening, your sugar-water mixture should have come to 118 degrees Celsius. Fun fact, when it's at 118 degrees Celsius, you should be able to blow a bubble with this mixture using a fork. Anyways, we are going to slowly stream our hot sugar mixture into our egg whites while beating on high speed. Once it is all added in, you are going to keep beating on high speed with your mixer until your bowl is no longer hot when you touch it on the outside. As well, your meringue will be nice and glossy and stiff enough you can turn the whole bowl upside down without anything falling out. At this point, we are going to start adding our butter to turn it from a meringue into a buttercream. So you're going to slowly add your soft butter, about a tablespoon or two at a time, until it is all added in. Then you're going to keep whipping until it turns into a buttercream. Now, what you're going to see as you start adding your butter is that your meringue will sort of deflate and it'll look really, really thin. It'll also turn yellow, and as you keep going, it'll eventually look like it has curdled, but then it'll just all come together and it'll be a nice, beautiful, smooth buttercream. I am just sort of going over this really quickly. I do want to make a video talking a little more in depth about different buttercreams, so go ahead and comment below if you think that is something you might be interested in. Once your buttercream is all brought together, go ahead and add your vanilla and beat once more just until that is completely combined. Now that our cakes are cooked and cooled and our buttercream is ready, we can work on assembling. So we are going to start with our carrot cake. Go ahead and pop that out of your tin, and we are going to cut it into 3 layers. So just make sure that you keep your knife really nice and level so that you can get beautiful straight layers. Now, if you couldn't smell the carrot cake cooking it in the oven, you're definitely going to smell it when you cut it in 3. This smells so good. It's such a nice carrot cake. You can really smell the cinnamon in there, and I just love this recipe. So now we are going to stack up our cake, starting with a blob underneath the bottom layer so that it doesn't slide around. And we are going to put a nice even layer of buttercream in between each layer. It is really up to you how much icing you put in here. A good rule that I like to stick to is to have my icing layers be about half the width of my cake layers. So if my cake layer is about 1 inch tall, then I like my icing to be about 1/2 inch tall. So spread out your icing, top each with a layer of cake, and then once it is all stacked up, we're going to go ahead and ice the whole thing. Now this is a really simple way to ice it. It's not going to require smooth sides or anything like that. So just however you like to do it, get your whole cake covered in a nice coat of icing, and then using a palette knife or the back of the spoon, we're just going to drag in some diagonal lines in our cake, starting from the bottom and working to the top, and you're going to go all the way around the cake, leaving a nice little sort of ridged design. Now, as a final touch, I decided to add some cute little piped carrots to my cake. So the way you're going to make these is just with some icing dyed orange as well as some icing dyed green. You're just going to make an orange line that is thicker at the top and thinner at the bottom, and add in a few little green lines coming out the top to make a cute little carrot. And I just put these randomly scattered around the outside of my cake. Now back to our nest cake. You're going to take the cake out of the bowl, and we're just going to trim this a little bit so it looks a little bit more like a bird's nest. So I just went ahead and cut down the sharp edge that I got from the top of the bowl. As well, I cut out a nice little divot in the center that our eggs can sit in. Now I also cut this in half so that I could put a little bit of icing in the middle but it wasn't really necessary. As well, if you do this, don't worry at all if you run into your little cradle in the middle, because it's gonna get covered up. Now I assembled my little cake nest on a cake plate, adding a thin layer of icing in the middle. And to cover this cake, we are going to use a grass tip, which, as the name suggests, is used to pipe grass. Now I've just filled a piping bag with some more of the same icing that I have turned chocolate with the help of some cocoa powder. And we are going to pipe some nice little twig looking shapes all the way along the outside of our cake. So just however you think looks nice, go ahead, cover the whole thing up with brown icing to look like a little twiggy nest. I also added a few leaves using the same green from earlier, plus a leaf tip, just add a little bit of something interesting to my nest. Finally, for our eggs. Now, as I said, I only got one of these to work, so now I'm going to show you how to make an egg without cooking it in an eggshell. So what you're going to do is take your little cupcakes or your little scraps from your nest that you cut off, and you're going to crumble that down. We are going to add enough icing to make it a texture that we can mold like a cake pop. So we're just going to use an egg as a reference and shape out a few little eggy shaped cake pops, and they're going to go in the freezer for a few minutes to set up. Now, while those are hardening, we are going to take a small amount of the remaining icing in a small bowl, and we are going to dye it a nice robin eggs blue color, and we're going to melt it down. This is going to be the shell of our egg. So we want this to get to a liquidy consistency so that we can dip our eggs. Then we're going to take our little cake pops out of the freezer, and using just a toothpick stuck in the top, you're going to dip them in the blue and get them all nicely coated like a nice even shell. Now you're going to want to put these back in the freezer to set up before all of the liquid icing drips off, but when you take them out, you can go ahead and speckle them. Now here I used a nice gold edible food paint that I have, but you can use some brown food coloring if you want it to be a little bit more realistic. So I just used a paintbrush, and I went ahead and splattered some nice little speckles on the outside of my eggs, and then just carefully transfer them over into the nest and remove the toothpick. Here are our two very simple and very cute little Easter cakes. I personally love this carrot cake design. It is one of my favorites. It is so cute and simple, and the little carrots on the outside, just so you're like, oh, it's a carrot cake. But these are so much fun and so easy to make, so I really hope you make some. I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you next time.